Hello, everyone. My name is Emma Vandiver, and I'm joined today by Caroline Flom, and we are two students from Boston University who are here today to tell you a little bit about the interventions that our groups came up with as we partnered with the City of Chelsea on working to reduce litter in their city. We did these projects as part of one of our classes under the instruction of Professor David Glick at BU. And we just wanted to share a little bit with you today about what we came up with, our research, our findings, and our recommendations eventually to the City of Chelsea.
So first, a little overview of the city and its current littering challenge. So it is a very dense city with a population density of about 6,000 people per square mile, according to the 2010 census. And it's currently struggling with a large amount of litter despite new bins and fines, according to the Department of Public Works. Most of the littering is coming from non-resident bus commuters on a route that bifurcates the downtown area, and a lot of cigarette butts from the large smoking population. And one of our preliminary findings that we'll go into in more detail in a couple slides is that litter begets litter. So it is not only very difficult and expensive to clean up, but the existence of litter encourages more residents to litter.
So I was part of the first littering team, and we decided to tackle this littering issue in Chelsea by narrowing it down a little bit. So we decided to focus on cigarette litter specifically, because as Caroline was talking about, litter begets litter, and cigarette litter is one of the most prevalent and difficult to clean up forms of litter there is. And so by reducing this one form of litter, we were hoping to also reduce the overall amount of litter. So once again, our main focus was reducing cigarette litter throughout Chelsea. We were specifically focusing on heavier traffic areas, such as the downtown area on Broadway. And then we began our research. And so I'm going to share with you just a few things that are main points of research that we used to come up with our findings and our recommendations. So to begin, there are these things called nudges, which are an aspect of the choice architecture, or the way that you present a choice to someone, which can alter their behavior in a predictable way. It doesn't force them to, it just pushes or nudges them in the right direction. The second thing that we were researching about is gamification, which is the idea that using game elements and intrinsic motivation can help to turn a serious action or behavior like eating your vegetables or throwing your trash away into an enjoyable one that you're pushing yourself to do and that you want to do. One of our other findings, which can seem kind of obvious in the real world, but is very important as a persuasion tool, is that lowering the time and effort it takes to complete a task, like the distance to a trash can, is an incredibly powerful persuasion tool, even just changing the perceived effort that it takes. One of the other things that we found was that cigarette litter can have a strong impact. We know about the environmental impact, but it can have a strong impact on the social and economic health of a community. So that means how safe people feel, the crime rates in that community, the health of the businesses there, and the amount of money that they're able to bring in. And then one of the last things that we decided to implement was that positive messaging, as opposed to negative messaging, and interactive campaigns like voting campaigns can be more effective at engaging and keeping community participation. And so all of these things wrapped up together in a nice little bow, we found that the most effective intervention would actually be a combination of interventions, such as a physical gamified receptacle for the cigarette butts, intermittent nudges like throughout the receptacles to lower the perceived time and effort needed to use them, and a centralized campaign to wrap it all together and reinforce the community participation by putting out positive messaging and empowering the neighborhood's actions through collection reports and telling people how well they're doing and how much we're collecting these receptacles and pushing people to continue participating. So our recommendation specifically were to use an interactive, brightly colored, like yellow, voting butler, where people would put their cigarette into one hole or the other, on one side or the other, in order to vote for whatever question there is. And that question could be changed out. And this would get people talking about it. It would encourage people to want to participate in it because they want to cast their vote. They want people to know how they feel on the issue. People are very social. And so this stimulates that sort of social interaction with their community. And then using signage such as footprints on the ground leading up to the receptacles and signs saying a receptacle in this amount of distance or time can help people understand that even though there's a receptacle just around the corner, if they can't see it, then it feels like it might as well be a million miles away and people are more likely to drop the trash. And so just reducing how far away and how difficult things seem. It's just 5 footsteps that way versus it's over there. It can make all the difference in the world in whether people use something. And then finally, an ongoing centralized community engagement campaign called #BinYourButt. So a catchy campaign to get people involved, get people talking about it, and also putting out the results of how much people are collecting in these butlers to empower people not to litter as a community, showing people that this is what their neighbors care about, this is what their community cares about, and they will jump on that bandwagon and also want to be a part of that. People want to be a part of what they feel other people think is important as well. And so this is just an example because it's kind of hard to visualize from an explanation, an example of what the voting butlers looks like. So as you can see, they're brightly colored. There's a question at the top, 2 answers, and you would put your butt on one side or the other. The windows are clear so that you can see what other people are voting for. And again, that's what helps to simulate that social interaction. You feel like you're interacting with the other people who have voted. People will pick up cigarette butts from off the ground and use them to vote and things like that. Kids will get their parents to put their cigarettes in them because they want to be able to vote for the issues. It's just part of getting everyone involved because these questions are universal. And now I'm going to hand it off to Caroline for how her team decided to approach this issue.
So my team 2, took a more holistic approach that encourages the participation of everyone in the community. So our main focus was reducing litter as a whole, so all types of litter in the downtown heavily trafficked areas such as Broadway that Emma talked about. Our research was very similar to what Emma's group found. The first big finding that we came across was the broken windows theory, which suggests that litter begets more litter and people imitate observed behavior. So if someone sees litter on the ground, they're more likely to think, oh, this is okay for me to do, and then litter themselves. The second thing we found was exposure to artwork encourages pro-environmental behaviors. So if there is artwork on the street, it will encourage care for the environment and not littering. And the third big thing we found was that education fosters long-term behavioral change, which has been proven time and time again, which can have both trickle up and trickle down effects. And our biggest finding was that beautification undoes the effects of the broken windows theory. So if an area is properly cared for, properly maintained, people are less likely to make it dirty with litter. And that also community education has positive externalities and lasting effects. So if a child is educated on pro-environmental behavior, they can influence not only their peers, but also their parents. So we came up with a 2-pronged approach in light of all of this research. And the first is an environmental student council at Chelsea High School, which is an extracurricular club focused on beautification and environmental leadership. So this may include mentors, cleanup days, periodic programming, especially Earth Day programming, and managing the annual mural project, which I'll talk about in a bit. But this would be a very cheap solution to encourage pro-environmental behavior among the younger generation due to mentorships with elementary and middle school students. And so this Environmental Student Council would manage the annual mural project, which would be a series of nature-themed murals installed in heavily trafficked downtown areas, painted by local artists and students. So again, the location of these murals would be up to the discretion of the Department of Public Works, but they would be very cheap because they are painted by local artists and students for free. And the mural project may also include a design contest run by the Environmental Student Council and community paint days where members of the public can come and help paint the mural.
So now just to conclude, because obviously it's been a little bit since we presented these projects to the city, and we have luckily been able to hear back from them on their feedback on our ideas and how they've decided to implement them. And so we thought we'd share a little bit of that with you. So in Chelsea now, they really had a strong positive response to both of our group's ideas. They liked how simple and easy they were to implement. And so they decided to purchase and install a few of the voting butlers that my group decided to put forward. And they already had an ongoing mural campaign that they were doing. And so they took the ideas and the research that Caroline's group presented to them and decided to implement pro-environmental murals in the city and start to include that pro-environmental theme into their murals just to get people further talking about it. And so I feel like both of our group's ideas will really start to blend and work off of each other as they both deal with community participation and community engagement, and both get people talking and creating a buzz about what the city of Chelsea is doing and these new fancy ideas that they're trying to implement. And so that was really amazing to see, like, an actualization of our ideas and our research and months of preparation. The city of Chelsea is also working on having a more proactive approach on limiting and banning items that are most often littered and disposed of improperly. And that includes, as Caroline was talking about, in schools, starting young with teaching kids what they should throw away and shouldn't throw away, trying to get styrofoam, plastic utensils out of schools and things like that when they can, so that students are understanding that reusing something can be so important as they grow older and taking that with them into their homes and communities. And then lastly, both of our groups made a point of pointing out different partnerships and community organizations that the city of Chelsea could work on strengthening and building to help increase the longevity of these projects and just the longevity of the anti-littering focus in Chelsea in general. So I know Green Roots is one that my group gave out. I know that Caroline's group also pointed out some artists and things like that to try and boost this anti-littering and beautification, just engagement in general, making it a whole wide issue because everyone's littering, and so it's going to take everyone to help push it back in Chelsea. So thank you so much for listening to our presentations. I hope that you really enjoyed our ideas, and I hope that you continue to support BU and the initiative on cities and the things that we stand for and the way that we get students involved.